My name is Therese Coppola. I'm a social media consultant and web designer primarily for the pet industry. I'm also host of the Petscope, the Periscope's very first show that's all about pets. And I am going to be talking with Tony Villalobos tonight. He is a canine handler, and he worked in Afghanistan for 4 years as a civilian dog handler. And we're going to be talking about military dogs, the life of a military dog, and their health, and how you adopt one, and all kinds of topics about military dogs. If you guys are interested, if you think your followers are going to be interested in this, please share this with them. Swipe up if you're on an Android device, swipe left to right if you're on iOS, and you can share either to your followers here on Periscope or to people on Twitter. So go ahead and share. I think this is really going to be good. I've been looking forward to this. Thanks, Monique. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for inviting your followers. Well, I am going to hang on just a second here. Let me get my Skype going. Okay, thanks for sharing, guys. Okay, I'm going to flip the camera here, and I'm going to let you see Tony. Hang on a second. Okay, there you go. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, how you doing, folks?
Can you guys hear him okay? Say something so they can...
Hello, test, test, 1, 2, 3.
Maybe talk a little bit louder if you can.
Okay. Hi, Kim.
Okay,
how you doing?
Good. They can hear you. Cool, cool. So I just did a brief introduction, told people that you were a canine handler in Afghanistan, and I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell them about your dog.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my name is Tony Villalobos, and I currently live in San Diego, California. I've been doing canine training and work for approximately about 12 years now. Recently, I spent some time in Afghanistan, where I spent about 4 years until I had to come home and take care of some injuries. While I was out there, not only was I a handler, my dog Bosco, but I also became a trainer and help people help train dogs, and so they can go out in the field and find bombs and narcotics and all that good stuff. I was one of the fortunate ones that once I came home, approximately about 6 to 7 months after, I was able to adopt my dog Bosco. So now he's hanging out with me in San Diego with our family, enjoying the retired life.
Oh, cool. And how old is Bosco?
Bosco's 7 years old. He's a German Shepherd, sable. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the sable color. He's looks like a wolf. He's a big boy. He's the first dog I have. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 plus pounds. He's the first dog I have that, I don't make him look so little. He's a big, tall dude. Yeah.
He sounds like, and I've seen pictures of him. He's really pretty. He's a gorgeous dog. Yeah, you have a YouTube channel. Right? I think that's where I saw him, right?
Yes, if you go to YouTube and you look up Bosco Comes Home, you should see some of our reunion videos from the airport. It's pretty cool.
Right, that's what I saw. I remember now. So let's get to the questions. And if you guys have questions, go ahead and type them out, and I will do my best to fit them in and make sure that we get all the questions answered. And I may have to take notes while we're talking, and then I'll after he gets done with one point, I can ask the questions that you guys have. So so what kind of jobs do the dogs have, and are they trained to specialize in certain things? I know you mentioned bomb sniffing and narcotics, yes, but do they have different jobs?
Yes, there's in the military and the civilian side, you have dogs that are trained to find bombs, dogs that are trained to find narcotics. You have dogs that specialize in demining. Basically, that's a whole different type of dog. They're more, when they go out, they search in a very tight pattern, looking for the mine away from the handler. Once they find, they tend to be recalled to the cleared area. We're starting to see dogs that are trained in human remains for recovery missions. We hate to see when they go out, but they got a job and they have to bring everybody home. We leave no one behind. Right. And I also, while I was out there, I found some military dogs that are used just for support for the soldiers, for morale.
Oh, that's great.
You'll see them coming around the bases and hanging out with some of the soldiers that need it, hospitals and stuff like that.
Oh, so therapy, like.
Yeah, therapy type.
Oh, that's great. Now, what kind of job did Bosco have?
Bosco's a dual purpose dog. He's trained in patrol to catch and bite bad guys if needed, and he was also doing narcotics. We participated in several raids at compounds and stuff trying to find narcotics, because you guys know narcotics are used to fund terrorism. Towards the end, before we left, we worked at a prison where they kept some of the top Taliban prisoners and just really bad dudes. So our job was to make sure that no contraband got into these guys and cell phones and stuff like that.
Wow.
So
Now, are they also trained to protect their handler?
yes. There are certain things that they're trained to do without going into too many details because of operational security.
Right.
But yes, we do practice that, and eventually with these dogs, what you'll find is that they become in tune with the handler. So it's almost like they know that that's their job, and it's just instinct. It's just like us humans, when we see somebody that needs help, we jump in. Same thing for them.
And they're with you 24/7, right?
That's correct. The only time that I was away from him is usually if I was on vacation, because he didn't travel. I'd come home twice a year, so you have to stay behind. But yes, 24/7. I'm the one that will take care of him, feed him, take him to the vet, and tend to his injuries when he got injured.
And I imagine that was probably, as much as you wanted to see your family, I'm sure that was hard to leave him behind when you left on leave, right?
Yes. It was almost it's like he knew when he'd see me that I'd start packing. He started getting antsy, and he knew that I was going away. And so yes, we put him up in the kennel, and it was hard. And times I love my family, but I couldn't wait to get back to him sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys depend on each other's for survival, so yeah.
Yeah. Especially when I came home, I knew that I wasn't going to go back because I had a long recovery ahead of me. That was really hard. So once I got the opportunity to adopt them, it's like I won the lottery.
Oh, I'll bet so. For those of you who are just joining, my name's Therese Copawoda, and you're watching the Petscope. I am talking with Tony Villalobos, who is a canine handler, and he was in Afghanistan for about 4 years, working with handlers and their dogs over there. And so if you're interested, if you think your followers will be interested, please do share this. This is some really cool information, and this is, these are our military dogs that are helping protect us. So it's really cool stuff. So what breeds are most commonly used for military dogs?
The most common used breeds are, you'll see Malinois, Belgian Malinois, and then German Shepherds, and then of course you have your Labradors. While I was out there, I saw a couple of pit bulls. They were doing, I think they were doing some of the TED program. But just the German Shepherds and the Malinois are the most common ones when it comes to the patrol side. Mm-hmm. For the single-purpose dogs, you would see the Labradors. Every now and then you'd see a mixed dog, like a pound puppy.
Now, are the pounds and the labs, are those more the ones that are going to be used for the comfort dogs or therapy dogs, or are they used for everything?
Well, I've seen some that are used in narcotics and explosives, but for the most part, those are the ones that they use for therapy. The lab, they don't want. There's some people that are not. They don't do good with other dogs, so a German Shepherd and a Belgian might look too aggressive to them. Mm-hmm. So that's why they go with a softer dog like a Labrador.
That makes sense.
Or a pound puppy, yeah.
That makes especially the pound puppy, yeah. So,
right.
somebody asked a couple minutes ago if the dogs only have one handler, or do you have multiple handlers?
They do. They have one handler. Well, typically they want the way to do it correctly is having one handler. That way, the handler knows that dog and knows all its quirks. And if we had dogs that we just kind of swap out all the time, each dog reacts differently to an alert or a change of behavior. So we try to keep them to where it's one handler, one dog, same. Unless the handler goes or retires, then we have to pair that dog up with another person, then we do it.
And I imagine, like you said earlier, that you really get in tune with each other, and that's, that would take longer to reestablish that kind of relationship with somebody new.
Yes, some of it is you got to think about it. You know, when you go out and you're looking for bombs, you want to be in tune with that dog 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's the difference between life and death for not only for yourself and the dog, but you know, you're the guy that says, all right, it's clear. You know, you all of you can walk through here, or yeah, let this truck in, and you know, so you want to make sure that you're very sure of what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people can die.
So, how long does it take to train a working dog, and how old are they when they start going through that training?
It just depends. For the most part, a lot of these dogs are being trained from when they're puppies, and it's just through exposure. You know, exposing them to different surfaces. You know, tugging. Then eventually, that training gets a little more intense. Typically, you'll see a dog out in the field and working. You know, about anywhere between 18 months. You know, to 2 years. In Afghanistan, they want a dog that's 2 years old.
Okay. And then how old are they when they retire? How long can they work?
It just depends on each dog. I've seen dogs retire as early as 4 years, and I've seen dogs working for the military that are 14 years old, and they're still out there.
Wow.
You know, some of them are kind of old, but they still can do the job. And, you know, some of them get there and they find out that it's not for them, so they just send them back. It just all depends on the drive of the dog. My dog Bosco's 7, and if you look at him, he still acts like a puppy.
Does he?
So he still has a lot of work in him.
And why was he retired? Was he just done?
I think what happened is that because I called the company every day for the whole time I was home. I called the president of the company, and you know, he would tell me, "Stop calling me. You know, he's not ready." So I think I bugged people enough that they said, "You know what? It's time for him to go." That, and you know, they also have plenty of dogs. You know, the contract that I was on was like a 400 dog plus contract, so they got to kind of make room for new dogs.
That makes sense. So part of it was that they just wanted to shut you up.
Yeah, I think.
Somebody wanted to say thank you to you and Bosco for your service.
You're welcome.
So what kind of problems? Two questions here. One is, do all the dogs come home? And then the other question somebody had a few minutes ago is, what kind of health problems, and do they suffer PTSD?
Yeah, all dogs come home. You'll see it on the internet. A lot of people are saying that they're left behind. The government doesn't per se leave them behind. A lot of times, so these rescue organizations go out to get them. It's because the contractor doesn't have the money to bring them out for whatever reason. But yes, they all come home. They're not left to the Afghans unless they're sold to the Afghan government. They all come home. As far as some of the issues, we're seeing mostly joint issues, you know, back problems. It's a very rough environment for them. When they're searching, they're looking up, down, you know, crawling under stuff, under trucks. So it puts a lot of wear and tear on their joints. At one point, you know, you're also seeing cancer, which I was told that the government's kind of tracking that, because if all these dogs are coming back with cancer, you know, what's it doing to our soldiers and people deployed? Yeah.
Well, that's and do they suffer PTSD? Do they have emotional problems?
Some do, yes. There are some dogs, depending on the location where they're at or what they were exposed to, that they do come back with PTSD problems. They have to be treated just like humans. They use some of the human medication to help them out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Poor dogs. For those of you who are just joining, my name's Therese Coppola. I'm host of the Petscope, and I'm talking with Tony Villalobos, who is a canine handler, and he spent 4 years in Afghanistan working with canines and canine handlers. And we're just talking a little bit about the life of a military dog. People that want to donate, I know there are, you know, you can send a Goodwill package or you know, care package to soldiers. Can you do that with for dogs?
Yes. Yeah, actually, while I was in Afghanistan, we got a lot of treats, a lot of toys, equipment, and so yes, there's a lot of organizations out there that are very reputable. Being in the business as long as I have, I'm starting to see some people, they're starting their own organizations, and unfortunately, you know, they collect money, but only a small percentage of that money and donations actually goes to the teams. One of the major organizations that's sending care packages out there is the U.S. War Dog Association.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're really good. And it was started by a gentleman named Rana Yellow. He's a Vietnam veteran and canine handler in Vietnam. He must have sent me, in the 4 years that I was there, a little over $4,000 worth of equipment for myself and the teams. So if you guys want to check him out, he's at uswardog.org. I think there's a link there where you can go in and make a monetary donation, or if you want to donate some, hygiene products or treats and toys, he's the guy to talk to. He'll make sure it gets to the teams.
Cool. And after we get done here, I will post that. Or Tony will post that in the Facebook in the Petscope underneath the event notice for tonight. Let's see. Are all of the dogs owned by the contracts and not the military?
No, the military has their own dogs. For the missions or some of the different contracts are owned by a contractor. They buy in, they train up, they spin up the dogs and the teams, and then they send them out. So they're kind of like contract employees. They bill a contract. They bill the government by the day or a month, something like that. So it's when we're out there, we're kind of augmenting the military teams. So a lot of times they'll have civilian dogs doing work like checking ECPs, entrance to a base. Mm-hmm. So then they use the military dogs to go out and do specialized missions and stuff like that. So it kind of frees those assets to do stuff for them. They're not tied up at a base or doing welfare checks, for drugs and stuff. Okay.
Now, after you adopted Bosco after he retired. And what if somebody wants to adopt a dog that doesn't have a soldier to adopt it when it comes back? Can civilians, other people adopt the dogs?
Yes, they can. There's an organization called Mission Canine Rescue, and their address is missioncaninerescue.org. And basically, they try to reunite handlers with their dogs. They actually transport the dogs from Afghanistan or wherever they're at to the handler. But sometimes they end up with dogs that are not, the handler for whatever reason can't adopt them or can't be located. Mm-hmm. So they do a background check and they screen the people are trying to adopt it, and then they place the dog with that family or person.
And given that these dogs have some really specialized training, do the people adopting them have to have some kind of orientation or training to know what that dog can do and make sure it doesn't use those skills?
Yeah. Some dogs are very social. Some dogs have the ability to, once they're done working, they can be a good family pet. But there are the exceptions. Some dogs need to go to a house with an experienced handler. And the Mission Canine Rescue does a good job about screening that. Like, the last thing you want is to adopt out a dog, and then for whatever reason, family can't handle it, and then the dog ends up in the pound.
Right. So. Right. Kim just asked, how many dogs make it as dual-purpose dogs? I imagine that's more specialized training.
Yeah, that's tough on the numbers. I'm not sure exactly what the statistics is on it. I know that for the dual-purpose dogs, there are specifically tests for that before they're even, begin training. But sometimes during the training, either they're bad training or just for whatever reason, the dog decides, nope, it's not what I want to do, and it stops working. So then they make it a single-purpose dog.
Okay. For those of you just joining, my name's Therese Copelwoda. This is the Petscope, and I'm talking with Tony Villalobos, who is a canine handler and spent about 4 years in Afghanistan working with canines and their handlers. So somebody asked a few minutes ago if the dogs are allowed in hospitals, and I'm not sure if they meant when the soldier is sick or if they go in to visit.
So they are. It just depends on the hospital. Like with Bosco, when we were in Afghanistan, we were really close friends with the doctors and the nurses at the trauma center. So every now and then we go in there and it was therapeutic for them. You imagine the stuff that they see. And a lot of times it was therapeutic for the soldiers, so they would allow us to go in there. I'm sure if we went to a hospital here stateside, he's a retired working dog, they usually wouldn't say anything. Yeah, and he's well behaved. He's not going to jump all over stuff and knock stuff over.
Okay. What are some of, are there, you mentioned Mission Canine and U.S. War Dog. Are there any other reputable groups that help canines and or their soldiers?
Yeah, the other one that, I personally know, it's the DDog Foundation, it's Combat Canine Foundation. Basically, what they do is that they cover medical bills for a lot of these retired dogs. For example, Bosco is sponsored by them, so for life, if he has to go to the vet, the DDog Foundation, they cover the vet bills.
Wow.
They work solely on donations from people. And you can find them at the ddogfoundation.org. And we'll post these later on.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm sure people will want to take a look at them. And then let's see, how hot does it get over there, and how does the dog handle that? Do you guys use, I know there are cooling vests for dogs. Do you guys use anything like that?
It does. Those times where we would work in 130-degree weather,
Whoa.
the dog was acclimated, and you just kind of have to, as a handler, it's very important to pay attention to your dog and know what the limits are and give them proper breaks and water them. The cooling vests are great. Unfortunately, sometimes they're not practical because you're usually working somewhere where there's no access to a refrigerator or ice water. So that's why it's very important to kind of find what your dog can do and understand its limitations so you don't burn the dog out.
Right.
In the event that, something happens where the dog suffers a heat casualty, a lot of times the medics, human medics, they know what to do, and as handlers, we're trained to take care of our dogs out in the field with IVs and stuff like that.
And how do you, this is just a purely logistical thing. How do you make sure you have enough water? Because can you carry enough?
Well, it just depends. Usually if you're at a base, there's plenty of water there, but if you have to go out, it's something you got to kind of plan ahead. In the vehicle you're going or helicopter you're going, usually they'll drop supplies. And for a handler, he has to carry water not only for himself, but also his dog.
Right.
And, the dogs, they take good care of us. There was a lot of times where a lot of these soldiers will give up their water for my pup,
I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet so. Just to clarify, you did say 130, correct?
Yeah, that's the hottest I ever worked in.
That's a scorcher. And I thought 110 was hot when I lived in Texas.
Yeah, it's kind of like opening the oven door and sticking your head in it.
No thanks.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the dogs earlier. Are Dobermans or Rottweilers ever used?
I haven't seen them. I know that back in, I believe it was World War II and Vietnam, they use the Dobermans. I've seen a Rottweiler here and there, but in this deployment, I didn't see any Rottweilers.
Okay. And let's see. If somebody wanted to become a canine handler for this type of thing, where would they start?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, first of all, you have to love dogs. That's the first and foremost. And not mind dog hair and dog snot. Believe it or not, I've been to canine school where we had a guy that was there, and all of a sudden, they asked if anybody had any questions. He raised his hands, and he goes, who's going to pick up the dog poop? Because I get grossed out, and I don't want to do it.
Seriously?
So, yeah, he didn't last that long. He was there for about a week, and then they failed him. The way I started literally is just working with search and rescue dogs and just exposing myself to, work with and train with police dogs and, bedbug dogs and all that stuff. A lot of times, a lot of people think that it requires a lot of money to get all this done, but you'd be surprised if you start knocking on doors and tell people that, you want to just do work for free, help clean after the dogs in the kennels, and in exchange, sometimes they'll take you in and you start picking up stuff here and there.
Mm-hmm.
You could also go to a canine school, but with that, you have to be very careful because there's a lot of schools out there that are not very reputable. You want to kind of do your homework before choosing one, and just have a lot of heart and keep an open mind. One of the problems that I see with people out there as canine handlers and trainers is that they only learn one method of training dogs, and they stick to it, and they don't deviate from that. They don't. You have to keep an open mind, pick up different methods from different trainers, expose yourself to that, and because you never know, you might not use a certain method on your particular dog now, but as you come across a different dog in your career, you can pull out of your tool bag and use that. So just keep an open mind and learn from everybody. Just get out there.
Right. What works with one dog may not be the same technique. Like some dogs I know are treat motivated and some are, attention motivated. So
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. That's one more thing for men. I have a deep voice, and when I first went to canine school, dogs feel like when I got there, I was like, oh, good boy. And he did his job, and then trainers are like, no, you gotta go, oh, good boy. You gotta get that high pitched voice. So if you don't have the high pitched voice, start practicing.
And somebody just asked, you did say bedbug dogs, right? They train those to sniff out bed bugs, right?
That's correct. Yeah, there's bed bugs dogs are being used right now all over the nation for hotels, hospitals. I think it was Tommy Hilfiger, one of those major designers. They use them to search through their fabrics because they don't want bed bugs. It's a big problem. I mean, there's dogs for everything. There's dogs that detect cell phones at prisons. There's dogs that detect money. Yeah, there's dogs that, I have a couple friends that they sell moose antlers for chew toys.
Uh-huh.
So they train their dog to find moose antlers. So they go out into the woods, and the dog goes out and finds the moose antler and brings it to them. So yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I guess
they got dogs. Dogs that are trained to detect the changes in blood sugar and diabetes.
I did know that. That's when I was a kid, I was in 4-H, and I trained one of my dogs to do scent discrimination with the dumbbells. And that I thought was fascinating. He could pick up, and he was good. He was a real good dog. He was a poodle. He was smart as could be. So you work with a particular organization, right? That helps reunite handlers with their dogs.
Yes. Being home and being disabled right now while I'm taking care of my injuries, I had driving the wife nuts, so I had to find something to do. So I joined a group called Operation Releash, and it was started by a handler that was also in Afghanistan. His name's John Moreno. And basically what we do is we try to track some of these dogs that were deployed with their handlers.
Uh-huh.
And they came home, and now they're either working for a government agency or we just don't know where they're at. So we try to find them and try to relocate them, try to reunite them. And when that's not possible, at least just to try to bring closure to the handlers, because you always kind of, as a handler, that's a part of canine that just sucks, not knowing what happened to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
So not too long ago, I was involved in searching a dog that we found. I was working with the FBI.
Wow.
So it was nice for the handler knowing that his dog's still out there doing work for a country.
Oh, that's cool. That's gotta make them feel good and give you a real sense of accomplishment and feeling like you really helped somebody.
Yes.
Somebody's asking, did you come across other defense forces using dogs while you were over there?
Yeah, the Navy SEALs, to specialized units, the 3-letter agencies that don't exist, but we know that they're out there. Hopefully they're not monitoring me. They all have their dog teams, and they're all over. You'd be surprised. Sometimes, I think at one point I saw the Border Patrol. I didn't even know they were out there. They had Border Patrol agents out there, and they had a dog with them.
Oh, wow.
So, you'd be surprised what you find out there.
Did I see a dog ear popping up?
Yeah, that was Bosco. He came in and put his head on my lap, and all of a sudden he just left.
Oh.
Yeah.
He wanted to say hi, but didn't want to be on the camera, huh?
Yeah, he hears me talk, and he comes over like, kind of, okay, what are we doing? Let's check things out,
Oh, how cool. How cool. So is there anything else that you want to tell us? And then I want to see if anybody else has any other questions, too.
No, just follow us on Twitter and Periscope. I'm a Periscope newbie, so you'll see me on there every now and then. I'm still trying to figure it out. Visit operationreleash.com, and you can follow us on Facebook on that same website. And then just try to help us, even if you can't help with donations, just sharing some of the dogs that we're looking for, it extends our reach to different parts of the country, and it helps us be more successful. I say about half of the dogs that we were looking for have been found, and we know where they're at, and the contact's been made with the handler, so we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. And you know what? Rather than you posting everything, I'll go ahead and post the information. That way it comes from the page, and people will be more likely to see it. Ron's saying, tell us a bit about the equipment the dogs wear in combat zones.
Let's see. We have, for my dog, I had just a basic, it wasn't a basic leash. That's the other thing that you don't think about when you're stateside. You're using, you go out to PetSmart, you get a regular nylon leash and stuff like that. But when you get into that environment, I don't know what is it. Well, maybe it's the dirt and the grime and everything that deteriorates your equipment. So some of the leashes that I had that I found that work best in those types of environment are those polyurethane covered leashes. It's like a rubber coating on it. Those are great because if you go to a compound, don't want to offend anybody, but it's the truth. The Afghans are very dirty people. They don't have plumbing. So when you're working on a 30-foot leash, that thing's dragging all over the ground. And so those are awesome because you can just wash them. They don't deteriorate. You can disinfect them. And so that's as far as the leash, that's what we would use. Obviously a standard collar. We use a harness. And again, in that environment, you got to be careful what harness you use because some harnesses cover the dog, the body of the dog too much, where it's actually counterproductive with the heat,
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be careful about that. And then if you're using a muzzle when you're boarding, going to the vet or boarding a helicopter, you want to have a muzzle that has proper ventilation. And so for the most part, that's about it. That's like the basic equipment. There's other specialized equipment that, we can't talk about.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah, I saw that, Kim. I was trying to figure out what you were talking about. Autocorrect really messed up a question that Kim had.
Oh, did
You want to try that again? Betathane? Is that?
Yeah, betathane, exactly.
That's the cover?
Betathane's the best, yes. And then for those of you guys that are making your own betathane leashes, I would recommend you do something with like a Kevlar threading because the sand out there acts like sandpaper, and eventually that stitching starts to deteriorate. So try to use some threading with Kevlar. I actually I made my own leashes at one point.
Oh yeah.
I was tired of them breaking. Imagine you have a 80 pound dog that you're trying to restrain. All of a sudden your leash gives out. There he goes.
Not good.
Yeah, you better hope the dog has a good recall.
Yeah, exactly. So, does anybody else have any questions? Any more questions for Tony? If not, we're probably going to wrap it up here. I want to thank everybody for joining. Again, my name's Therese Copawoda, and this is the Petscope. I've been talking with Tony Villalobos, who is a canine handler and worked in Afghanistan with his dog Bosco for about 4 years. So if nobody has any questions, I'm just going to say thank you to Tony, and you'll see his Periscope username in the title of this Periscope, so you can follow him, and I will get the information from him about the groups he was talking about, and I'll post it in the Petscope page. So if you're not already following the Petscope, please go do, and you'll have that. I'll have that information there for you a little bit later. Everybody's saying thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you to Bosco, and they really appreciate all the information.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.